The creative practice. We all want one, and to be honest, I think we all need one. Now, I'm not talking about your artistic journey as a whole, where you're mastering a medium or learning all the bones and muscles of anatomy. While creativity is most definitely a part of that more academic side of your art journey, the kind of creative practice I'm talking about here is the playful one. That super special space where we get to experience a little bit of freedom. Some people might call this guilty pleasure art, but I like to call it soul food. It's where we reconnect with our 5-year-old selves and remember that,
oh yeah, we do have an imagination.
That the joy is in simply making something and not in making a masterpiece. I was always a pretty creative kid, lots of drawing and singing and doll playing. Polly Pockets and Littlest Pet Shops were my jam. But somewhere along the way, we kind of forget how to have fun. Everything has to have a purpose and has to be the best thing that we've ever done. Creativity becomes a chore rather than a joy. I'm trying to change that. I want my creative practice to be the opportunity for me to play pretend, you could say. Where my inner little kid Allie comes out and just imagines. Developing a creative practice is a lot like going to a theater show that's all you and all for you. You're the only audience member, but you're also the entire cast, stage dresser, lighting crew. But it's special and it's worth it because it's yours. It's a place to break away from the fear of failure and any outside pressure and just create for the joy of it. So how do we build this one-man show? How do we cultivate a playful creative practice? How do we make space for the popsicle-eating kid in us who just wants to make cool things without fearing failure? Number 1, you gotta show up. Honestly, I think this is the hardest and most important part, so we'll start with it first. If no one shows up to make a show happen, it doesn't happen. Even I struggle to find time to have a playful creativity session, and art is my career. Now, you may not have hours to work in your sketchbook. You may not even have half an hour. But I guarantee you have 5 minutes somewhere in your day to sit down and sketch something. Don't know what to draw? Just start drawing some lines and see what happens. Don't think you can sit there the whole 5 minutes? Set a timer for 1. Simply show up to the dang theater. Butt in chair, as Jane Yolen would say. One of my goals this year is to do a little bit in my sketchbook every weekday. I try to set aside around an hour for this to just draw whatever I feel like drawing, but sometimes I literally only have 5 minutes to just scribble out a doodle. But at the end of the 5 minutes, I give myself a gold star for just showing up. The entire point of the playful creative practice is to let go of the pressure. And part of that means letting go of the pressure to make it some hyper-focused 27-hour-long process. Just be there, be present, and if your 5 minutes are up and you just don't want to be there anymore, let go of the practice today and show up again tomorrow. If you follow none of the other steps in this video, just try this one, and that alone is going to kick off your creative practice. Number 2, find your stage. Having the space to create is very, very important to me. Now, of course, you can find pockets of creativity throughout your day without being in a specifically creative space. Maybe you do some plein air sketching while you're watching your kiddos at the park, or doodle the funny little dog you see at a gas station. But I truly believe setting a consistent creative stage for yourself is super important too. A kind of sacred space for your practice. Which brings me to the sponsor of today's video. Are you tired of sitting like a shrimp while you create? There's really only one solution, and that is the FlexiSpot E1 electric standing desk. After years of sitting like a crooked little shrimp while I worked, painting was actually really painful. FlexiSpot takes the health of their customers very seriously. They've made it their goal to provide you with a workstation that supports your efficiency, productivity, and well-being. Now, as an artist, the aesthetic of my equipment matters almost as much to me as the functionality. And most desks, let's face it, are pretty boring. But with FlexiSpot, you don't have to choose between efficient or aesthetic. They give you both. Your desk is fully customizable. You get to choose the color of the frame, the size of your desktop, and even the desktop material. You can also add things like drawers or a monitor stand.
Wild, I know.
I chose this mahogany chipboard that also acts as a really nice backdrop for my video thumbnails. But if you're looking to get the best bang for your buck, FlexiSpot also offers a bamboo option. It's durable, it's sustainable, and it looks really, really pretty. Designing a workspace that supports your creative practice is so important, but designing one that also supports your health is even more so. Now you're probably thinking,
Health, productivity, and aesthetic all rolled into one? That's gotta be out of my price range, right? Wrong.
FlexiSpot has something for every budget and offers a 30-day risk-free return policy. Get started today with FlexiSpot. You can follow the link in the description to get $30 off your first purchase. Thank you again to FlexiSpot for sponsoring today's video. So finding my own creative stage has definitely made a big impact in my art practice. Y'all know I'm a huge fan of all things cozy, so designing my space to reflect that helps keep me inspired and makes me really excited to keep coming back to my practice. Things like plants or little crocheted pumpkins, my yellow keyboard. Are these necessities? No. Could I make art without them? Absolutely. But, they make me smile. They help me walk into my space with good vibes. The way you set up and decorate your stage is 100% up to you. Maybe you love steampunk and want some super techy and gadgety equipment and decor. Or maybe you really love cottagecore and want to grab a cute bouquet of dried flowers to add some color to your space. Whatever floats your boat. Now on to number 3. So we've made it to the theater, we're chilling on the stage, but we don't have any props. Just as different shows use different props and costumes, different creative practices use different tools also. Now you might be thinking,
But I don't have any. Guess I better go out and buy a whole bunch of art supplies that I probably won't end up using.
hold up, showing up to too many options can be very overwhelming and completely kills the creativity. Not to mention, that can get very expensive very fast. A digital art practice doesn't need 5 canvases and 20 tubes of paint. A sculpting practice doesn't need a bunch of colored pencils cluttering up their space. Or maybe you're a mixed media artist and you do want to have a few different kinds of supplies handy. That's cool too. But I'd really recommend trying to limit the supplies that you set out. Try giving just one thing a try for right now. Use the tools that you already have. Giving yourself even just one small set of tools like a ballpoint pen and a sheet of printer paper can be all you need to get the creative juices flowing. You can always add more props throughout if you find that this particular show needs something more. Now, if you really think you need that one special new brush pen that you've been seeing everywhere to really complete your practice, then go ahead. Buy the tool, but use it. Dedicate at least the next 5 creative practice sessions to play around with just that tool. We artists kind of have that crow brain, shiny object mindset and like to collect every single art supply that catches our eye. But that doesn't give you the opportunity to really get to know and enjoy the supplies. In the end, those supplies just collect dust and leave us with a bunch of old crusty art supplies to clean out one day. Number 4.
Ambience.
Once again, this isn't a crucial part of the practice, but it is one of the most fun parts in my opinion. It kind of goes hand in hand with setting our stage. Turn on some tunes or a podcast, light a smelly good candle, grab a snack to munch on and some tea. Just don't be like me and dip your paintbrush in your teacup. You know how many times I've Googled,
Will I die if I drink paint water?
Save yourself the trouble of Googling and just be spatially aware of your teacup and your paint cup. Now sometimes I can sketch for hours without listening to anything other than the birds outside my window. And other times I really need some music to liven up my energy and keep me grounded in my practice. Now what I listen to is very dependent on what part of the practice I'm in. If I'm doing some serious problem solving in my art, anything with words is a no-go. Lyrical songs,
Out.
podcasts,
Out.
Disney movies.
Sadly, those are out too.
My favorite thing to listen to for this is soundtracks. I love instrumental music. Y'all gotta go check out Joe Hisaishi. He is a fantastic modern composer, composed most of the Studio Ghibli soundtracks, great stuff. Now if I'm just sketching for exploration or painting more intuitively, I'll often put on a podcast or a movie to listen to. Some of my favorite podcasts are 3 Point Perspective, Make Art Don't Starve, and Elise Meyer's Funny 'Cause It's True. And basically any Pixar movie is also a go-to as well. Having like a playlist of music or a particular tea you drink when you're sitting down to create can be a really good way to get yourself in the zone. Our brains are actually pretty cool when it comes to developing habits. When we start to develop a habit, our brains create these associations between consistent variables. I think they're called neural pathways. I don't know, I could be wrong on that, don't take my word on it. So say you light a particular candle every time you sit down to paint. Your brain is going to associate that scent with creativity. This can actually be a really nifty little way to trick yourself into being creative even when you aren't super motivated. Now, I am not advocating for tricking yourself into art all the time. If you're constantly feeling unmotivated, you may be experiencing creative burnout, and that cannot be cured with little brain magic tricks. If you are experiencing burnout, go check out this video for some handy-dandy little tips on healing from it. Number 5, put on the show you want. If you're having zero fun with your creative practice, you're not creating the right things. Maybe your subject isn't really vibing with you. Maybe you're pushing yourself to paint realistically when all you really want to do is create ink pen comics. It's always great to try new mediums or styles or subjects. We want to learn and to grow as artists. But this creative practice is about playtime. This is not the part of the video game where you take on a big boss battle of a project. This is the part of the game where you're just wandering around, admiring the world building. Grab a notebook and write down 20 things you like. And I don't just mean artsy stuff. If you like a particular flower, write it down. Maybe you're really into boats. Write that down. Maybe roller skating is your go-to weekend hobby. Put it on the list. I guarantee you'll come up with 20 things in no time. Now take a look at that list. Scratch off whatever doesn't interest you to incorporate into your creative practice. If you love antique cameras, but the thought of sketching one doesn't mesh with you at all, put a big ol' X on that idea. Or maybe you're cool with all these ideas. That's great too. But pick one for now and save the rest for a rainy day. Now grab whatever supply is speaking to you and just put this idea down on canvas or paper or, I don't know, a Microsoft Paint document. Do your thing and have fun with it. Don't make it harder than it needs to be. Our 6th and final tip is improv. Improv is one of the most incredible forms of theater in my opinion. It's the method of taking one idea or joke or theme and just running with it. Comedians working the crowd and coming up with the most hilarious joke off the cuff. Actors developing a scene and creating a story on the fly. So I went to an art camp for a couple summers while I was in high school, and one year I decided to sign up for the improv workshop. Now for some reason I thought this was gonna be more of a lecture kind of thing, that I could be a silent participant, maybe ask a question or two, but no. We had a short lesson and then we jumped right into improv scenes. Now I love people. I would even go so far as to say that I'm more on the extroverted side. I enjoy talking to people and learning their stories. However, I do not like to be the center of attention. Nothing makes me want to crawl under a rock more than when all eyes are on me. So you can imagine, this improv workshop, let's just say I don't think it's for me. Improv is a challenge, and sometimes you just don't tell a very good story or your joke falls kind of flat. But sometimes the most incredible magic is made during improv. The same is true for your creative practice, throwing something a little unexpected in there. Maybe grabbing a new medium or color that you don't normally reach for, or splashing some coffee on your page before you start sketching, or picking a subject you've never tried before. Loosen up and just let art happen. Now I know that's oftentimes easier said than done. It's scary trying something without knowing where it's going. That element of potential failure is terrifying, but it really doesn't have to be. Remember, this is playtime. If your sketchbook page ends up a big blobby mess, that's okay. It wasn't a waste of time. Even our quote-unquote failed pieces are still a part of our journey. Every failure makes you a little less scared to fail the next time. 5-year-old you wasn't super concerned about failing in the first place. You just played. Not every drawing looked awesome, and not every dull playtime was the most elaborate storyline. But you didn't care. You just had fun and explored your creativity. Throwing a bit of improv into your creative practice can really spice things up and help you discover new things you like in your creative practice. Sometimes it's an absolute failure, but you learned a lesson from it. Sometimes it's your new favorite piece and you hang it on your wall for everyone to see. Developing a playful creative practice is about finding the joy in the process and letting your inner kid come out again. We tend to overcomplicate things and make it deeper than it needs to be, but at the end of the day, art is about having fun, finding joy. Growing and improving your skills is fantastic, but if genuine love of creativity isn't at the heart of it, it's not really worth it. That's a one-way ticket to resentment. Now, not every creative session is gonna fill your soul. Sometimes an idea just doesn't work out. Sometimes you sit and stare at the page for an hour and move on. Sometimes you just want to swatch your colors instead of painting a picture. all are absolutely fine. They're all a part of the journey. If one day doesn't work out the way you wanted it to, don't beat yourself up about it. I give you full permission to laugh it off and just walk away for today. You'll show up again tomorrow with a fresh mind, and you'll take it from the top, as they say. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed watching me paint this tea house and chatting about creative playtime with me. I'd love to hear about your creative practice down in the comments. What's your favorite medium or subject? Or what's your go-to song when you create? Huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon for helping support me in my art journey. Y'all were immensely encouraging while I worked on this piece, and truly it was such a blessing. Thanks again for watching, and go be creative. Bye guys!